Hello everyone. In the previous tutorial, we progressed our Django series by building a profile page that allows users to update their profile using a form. Users can update their first, last name, age, and also the avatar. And we also learned how to standardize the media file names. For example, if I was to open this image in a new tab, you notice that we replace the file name as uploaded by the user using a UUID field. We saw the advantages of this. You can refer to that video for more info. In today's video, we are going to build our blog application. The blog will take a similar approach. This is the template we've been using. We'll have the thumbnail, the title, the other field, the date it was posted. I won't include the comment section, but if you ask, we can include them. We'll also have the categories, where we'll be able to filter the blogs using their categories. And in a future video, we're going to add the pagination, and we're also going to add a tag system to our blog post. So to get started with this, we're going to need to create our blog application. So I'm going to do this in my terminal, and that is Python manage.py startup. I'm going to call it blog. We've done this multiple times. This will create our blog application. Then I'm going to register it in my root project file. So in our settings.py file, we're going to register the blog application. And after doing that, we can start creating our models. So class blog, this will be models.model. So the first field is going to be the title, and this will be a character field. We're going to give it a max length of 255. We're also going to have a content field, and this will be a text field. We're also going to have the category. This will be a character field. We're going to give it a max length of 25, and we're going to set the default to workout. So every blog post will have a default category of workout. Let's also have the author field, and this will have a one-to-many relationship with our user object. This simply means that a blog object can belong to one user, whereas a user can have many blog posts. So this will be models, foreign key, and you're going to specify the user model. So instead of importing it from our user application, we are going to import it from the settings, and we can do that at the top. So from django.conf import settings. So this will be settings.auth user model. Then you're going to specify on delete. I'm going to say models.cascade. And this simply states that when we delete a given author or user, we also delete all their blog posts. And also going to specify the related name, which you can use to query the blog objects from the user object. So the related name. After the category, let's have a date created field. So this will be date created. This will be a datetime field, and this will be auto now add. We're going to set this to true, and this simply means that the date will be set automatically when creating the object for the first time. This is different from the updated field, which will have the auto now set to true, and this will update the date automatically when saving an object. And it's also useful to keep track of the number of users who have viewed our blog. So this will be view count, and this will be models dot positive integer field. We're going to set the default to 0. Then we're going to have the slug field, and this will be models dot slug field. It should be unique. They can also be blank when creating it. We are going to be creating it programmatically. Then I'm going to give it a max length of 250. We'll also include a status field, and this will be a choice field. So this can either be draft or published. We'll have to set up this. This is not how you set up choices when working with Django. So to set this up, we're going to define another class within our blog class. So this will be class status, and it will inherit from models dot text choices. And like I said before, we have draft, and we're going to need to define the value that is going to be stored in the database, which will be df, and also need to define a second value, which will be the human readable value that we can access in the admin page or at the front end of our website. This will be draft. We can do the same for the published field. So we'll have published. Then we can set the value that is going to be stored in the database, which will be PB. Then the human readable text, which will be published. Then in our status choices field, this will be models.character field. Then we can have a max length. Max length will be 2. Then we can have choices. The choices will be our status class. So status.choices. You can also set the default to draft. So the default will be status.draft. We can also have the thumbnail. We saw this in the previous tutorial. This will be an image field. The default image will be the default thumbnail.jpg, and upload to get random file name. We are going to define this function. Again, we saw how to do this in the previous tutorial. So at the top, we are going to import OS and UID, then define our function. So finally, we need a way to convert our title into slugs, and we can use slugify from Django. So from Django.utils.text import slugify, and what slugify will do is to convert our title. For example, if we pass this title to one of our blogs, it will convert it into a URL friendly slug as such. So to slugify our title, we need to override the save function of our model. So this will take self, it will take args, and it will also take quags. So we are going to check if the slug is provided or not. So if not, self.slug, and if the slug is not provided, we set it. So self.slug, this will be slugify, the function we've just imported, and you're going to slugify the title. And after that, we just need to save our blog object. So super.save, this will take args and quags. After this, we can define indexes that will optimize our database queries. I showed how to do this when we defined our users model. And this we set the indexes at the field level, where we set the DB index to true. I'm going to show you an alternate method, and this is by using the class meta attribute. Here we can have indexes. This will be a list. So we'll have models dot index, and we can set the fields, and I'm going to use the updated datetime field. So in our fields, let's just set it to updated. Then finally, we need a way to order our blog objects when we query them using blog.objects.all. You remember that this will return a query set. So we need a way to order this query set, and I want to order them using the updated field in descending order. So we can do this using ordering, and this will be a list of fields, and we want to do this in descending order. So we specify the minus sign, and here we can use the updated field. So I think that's enough for the blog model. We just need to make the migrations and register it in our admin panel. So Python manage.py make migrations, and I'm going to specify the blog application. I'm getting this error, type error class meta got an invalid attributes ordering. I misspelled it. This is a typo. So let me just fix that, and we can make the migrations again. So that will make the migrations. Now we need to migrate. After that, we need to register it in our admin page. So we can import the model. So from current directory .models import blog. Then to register it, we're going to customize it in a few minutes. But first of all, let's see it. We can run the server and navigate to the admin page. So you will notice that we have our blog objects over here. At the moment, we don't have any blogs, and we can add them by clicking on add blog, I'm going to specify the author. I'm going to select my current author, which is the admin, jendo@gmail.com. I'm going to give it a title. The content, eventually this is going to support rich text, but for now let's just paste in thumbnail for testing. This is a workout blog with some content. Category, you can see the default is set to workout. View count is currently set to 0. The slug, we're not going to provide it. It's going to be provided automatically. The status is set to draft. We can set it to published. Then you can also set the thumbnail. And I'm just going to select this picture, which I've downloaded. There's just one more thing that we need to update, and that is our blog's object name. You can see that it's not very descriptive. We get this blog object 1. We can update this in our models by providing a string data method. So def string, and this should return self.title. So when we refresh it, you'll see we get our title. This is a workout blog. And you'll see that our slug has been automatically provided. And you can also see our thumbnail. Our thumbnail has been stored in our media directory within our blog portraits. We are going to start writing the views for our blog application. We are going to write the views responsible for listing all the blog objects, the views responsible for creating the blog objects, the detailed page, and you can also write the view for deleting the blog post. And like I said before, we are going to be using class-based views. So far we've been using function-based views, but you should also learn to work with class-based views. So Django introduced class-based views to simplify the development of common web application patterns, like for example displaying lists of items or handling forms. All of these views can be imported from Django.views.generic, and you can start by the ListView just to see how it works. Then you can have our own class which is going to extend the ListView. So blog ListView is going to extend ListView. And over here we need to specify the model. And this will be the name of the model we want to get data from. And this is the blog model. So we are going to import this. So from current directory .models import blog. Then the model you're going to specify blog. Then we're also going to specify the template name. And this will be blog list.html. We haven't created this, but we're going to do it in a few minutes. And with that, our view is as good as ready. We just need to create the URL configuration for this and register it in our root projects directory. So in our blog application, let's create the URLs file. Let me rename it. This will be urls.py. Then I'm just going to copy the URLs from the user's application as a starting point and have it in here. Then from current directory.views, this should be blog list view. Then in our URL patterns, I'm going to leave this as empty. Then in our view, this should be blog list view. And since this is a class, we need to convert it into a callable function. So we can use the method .asView, and this will convert it into a callable function that Django can process. In the name, this should be blog list. So after that, we also need to register this URL configuration in our root project directory. So in our root project directory, where we have our URLs, I'm just going to copy these users and paste it in. And where we have our members, let's have it as blog, include blog.urls. After that, we also need to create the template, which is bloglist.html. So in our templates directory, let's create a new file. This should be bloglist.html. So I've created some snippets that we are going to use for our templates. You can find these snippets in my GitHub repo. That's under Django snippets. I'll put the link in the description. And in the blog list.html, you can just copy it and paste it in. You'll notice that we extend the base.html file. We load static for the images. This is the banner section, which is this part. I think we just need to change the URL name for the home. This will be a URL tag, so URL. And the name for this URL was supposed to be home. Then we have our section. This is where we have our this is where we're going to have our blogs. This is the section where we are going to have we are going to list the blogs, the categories, and maybe the popular tags. There are some custom CSS and also some bootstrap CSS. We have the container, we have the row. We saw how to use them in the previous tutorial. So the most important part for this section of this tutorial is this part. So this is where we are going to add the blog posts. At the moment we have hard coded the categories. You can see we have the category name, and the number of blog items in the category. But eventually we are going to make this more dynamic. We also have the tags. At the moment we have hard coded them. And again, we're also going to see how to make this more dynamic. So I'm going to bring this down and focus on this part for the blog posts. So let's just run the server so that you can see how it looks at the moment. So that is running. Let's navigate to the blog URL. And you can see this is what you have. We have the banner, we have the categories, the tags, and this is where we want to add our blog posts. So I'm going to stop the server and we can start working on that. So you can start writing the logic for displaying our blog posts. And the good thing about using class-based views, it's easy to pass the context data. We've seen this before when we created our users application and we were passing the context as such. You can see we pass the title, profile, and we are also passing the form as context. This is a little bit different when working with class-based views, as the context is automatically passed to our HTML. Since we are going to be accessing a list of blog posts, we are going to use a for loop to iterate over all blogs. So for every blog in iterable, the iterable, in this case, Django is going to pass it in context automatically. And since we are working with a list view, the iterable is going to be called the object list. And down here, we can access all the blog attributes. We can have them in a div, and the div will have a class of blog item. This is a custom CSS. We can start by the thumbnail. So this will be in a div, and the div will have a class of by pic. Again, this is a custom CSS. Then within this, we are going to have the image tag for the thumbnail. The source, this should be a variable, so I'm going to have it in a double curly braces. And we are going to access the blog item, which we're accessing in the loop over here. So blog dot thumbnail dot URL. The alt is going to be very similar to this. This will be blog. We can remove the thumbnail and have it as blog dot title. So after these changes, let us have a look at how it looks at the moment. Let's just run the server so that we can see it. We can see we get the thumbnail of the first blog post we created, and we can include the rest of the blog items next to it. So we can have the rest of the items under div, and this will be by text. Here we can have the category and the title. So div, this will have a class of margin bottom of 3. This is a bootstrap class. And within this div, we are going to have the category. So this is a variable again. So double curly braces. And here we can have the blog dot category. After the category, let us have the blog title, which will be in a header 3. I'm going to give it a bootstrap class of text white. So this will be blog dot title. After this is done, we can have the rest of the details, which is the author's name and the published date. And I'm going to have this in an ordered list. And within the list, you can have the list items. So this should be the blog.author.firstname. And down here, we should have blog.date created. So we can see this when we navigate to our page. The server is still running. And you can see that it's not very smart. We still need to add some custom CSS. I just wanted to show you that our blog items have been populated. We have the category, we have the title of the blog, we have the author name, and we also have the date in which the blog object was created. So we can start with another list, and we're going to give it a class of margin top 4. This is a bootstrap class. Then in our list objects, we are going to wrap this in a anchor tag. The link, we are going to leave it empty for now. Then within the A tag, we can have the blog's author and first name. We can also give this a class, again, of text white. We are also going to wrap the title tag in an anchor tag. And this eventually will be redirecting our users to the detail page of the blog. So we can have A. So the URL, we're going to have it empty for now. And we can cut this and wrap it in this blog item div right above here. And we can refresh our site. And you can see that it's much better right now. We have the thumbnail, we have the category, we have the title, and we have the author, and we have the date. But you can see that the date is not very great. We are going to use some Django filters for this. Eventually, I'm going to add a link here to point to the detail page of this particular blog post. And we also have the author's name. This is also a link to all the posts for a given user. So let us see how we can format this date into a suitable format. So ideally, I'd like to have the date formatted to something like this. And to do that, we're going to use some custom Django filters and tags. So we can use this operand to use those filters, date, and specify the date. And here we can pass the string format in which you want the date returned. So the first thing should be the month of the year. And you can get this from the documentation. So I want something like this for the month. And you can see that it's capital F. So we can have that. That's a capital F. Then I want the date in this format. I think that should be D in this format. So you can have that. Then comma. Then finally the year. The year in that format should be, I want something like this. So that's a capital Y. So we can refresh it and see the changes. And you can see the filters have been applied. So with these changes, let us try and create more blog posts. So I'm going to navigate to the admin page. Eventually, I'm going to create a page that will be responsible for creating new blog posts. But for now, let us just use the admin page. So we have this. Then we can add another blog author. I'm just going to select the same author. Then the title, let me just copy this from this website. It's something like this. The content, we can copy the first thing. Category, let's have it as nutrition. Slug, we're going to leave it empty. Status, let's leave this as draft. The thumbnail, I'm just going to have this one and save. Then I'm going to do this process the same for 3 more blog posts. So I've created these blog posts. Some the status is set to publish, some are set to draft, and so on. So let us see them in our blog page. We can navigate to the blog page. And you can see that we have them. We have the title, we have the category, the date in which it was posted, and we also have author. So you'll notice that we get all the blog posts, even for the ones that are set to draft. For example, this blog post is set to, the status is set to draft. and yet we have it here. So we need a way to return only the blog posts that are set to published. And we can do this in our view. But before we do that, there's one thing that I want to show you, and that's in our template. So I mentioned before that this object list context data type is provided by default by Django, but we need to provide a descriptive name for our blog objects. So ideally, we would have something like blog posts. So, and we can adjust this in our view. We can pass the attributes using context object name, and that should be blog posts. And we can refresh the server and you can see that it still works. Now we can proceed to work on the published and draft status. So when we specify model is equals to blog, Django simply runs this method, which is blog.objects.all. And you're aware that this will return a query set. This would also mean that you could remove this attribute altogether and have something like query set is equals to blog.objects.all, and it will still work. If you refresh the server, you'll see that it still works. So I want to show you how we can create a custom manager for our blog model where we can query only the published blog objects. So instead of having blog.objects.all, we can have blog.published.all. And we can do this in our models. So first of all, we need to define the default objects manager, which is objects models.manager. And this is the one that is going to return this. So this will be this. And down here, we can have our published object manager. And this will be equals to published manager, which is our custom manager. We need to create it. So at the top, we can have class published manager, and this will extend models dot manager. Then we need to override the get query set method. So instead of returning the query set as it is, we are going to filter by the status. So status, filter by status, which is equals to blog dot status dot published. Then finally, in our view where we have our query set, we can just replace the objects by published. And we can refresh the server. And you can see we only get the blogs that are published. There's one more thing that I need to show you, and that is how to pass context data to our view. For example, our title at the moment is set to Alpha Gym, which is our default title. Ideally, I'd like the title tag for this page to be something like blog posts. So how can we pass this context data in our class-based view? This is very simple. We just need to override the get context data function. Instead of running the parents method that gets the context data, we are going to store it in a context variable so that we can have access to the context. Then within the context, we can have title, and this should be blog posts. Then finally, we need to return the context attribute, and we can refresh the site, and you will notice that the title has been updated to blog posts. Eventually, this is where we are going to pass stuff like categories and tags. But we're going to see how to do this in the next tutorial. So that's our blog list view. Let us now create the blog detail view. And this will be very similar to this, so we can just copy it. I'm going to bring this down to save on space. Then instead of extending the list view, we need to use the detail view. So this will be detail view, and this should also be detail view. I'm going to remove this, the query set, and specify model. So model should be blog. The template name, this should be blog detail.html. Context object name, this should be blog post instead of posts. For the context detail, where we have the title, I want this to be the blog title name. So this should be self.object.title. So finally, we also need to register this view in our URLs. And this is how the URL is going to work. So when a user navigates to localhost port 8000 _blog, I want them to pass the slug. And when they pass the slug for a given blog post, it should return our detailed view. So at the end of the day, we should have something like this for our URL. We have localhost blog, then the slug. So how do we do this? So to do this in our URLs, let's first import our view, which is blog detail view. Then you can just copy this to get started. This should be blog detail view as view. The name, it should be blog detail. And we can pass the slug as arguments in our URL using this format. So you're going to specify slug as the type of argument, and finally slug, which is the actual attribute. So once we have this, we can now work on the HTML part of it, which is blog detail.html. So in our templates, we're going to create that file, which is blog detail.html. You can find the snippets for this HTML page in my GitHub repo. So you can just copy it and paste it in. We're going to start with the blog title. I've indicated that it should be placed within a header 2 tag. So header 2, I'm going to give it bootstrap classes, margin bottom 2. I'm also going to give it a bootstrap class of text, white. Then over here, we need to pass in the blog's title, which is blog post dot title. This is the object name we provided in our view. Then you can do the same thing for the thumbnail. We can also do the same thing for the blog dates. Here we'll have the blog post date created, and we can also have the last updated date field. Down here in the content section, we can have the blog content, and this will be in a p tag or paragraph tag. So this will be blog post dot content. The rest of the items, you're going to do them later. For example, the update and delete buttons. We're going to have the tags bit later. For now, let's do the other details. So we have this, we have the avatar, we have the author's first name. This over here should be something like a bio. I think we can add this, but we'll do that later. For now, let us refresh the server and try to access a given blog post. So we have our blog posts. At the moment, we are only printing the title in the admin panel. Let us customize it. Let us customize it to include the rest of the details. For example, we can have the slug here for better accessibility. We can do that in the admin page within the blog application. I've shown how to do this multiple times. This will be admin.register. You have the blog. Then we can have our new class, which is blog admin. This should extend admin.modeladmin. Then we can have our list display. Can have the title. Then we can have the slug. We can have the view count. We can also have the status, and we can also have the category. So with those changes, we can refresh the site and see. Because see, we get this, the title, slug, view count, status, and category. So we can try going to this slug and see what happens. The localhost port 8000 blog, go to that. And yeah, you can see we have it. We have our thumbnail, we have our title, we have our last updated over here. So that is working correctly, but there's one thing you're going to notice. We have gone to this page for our given blog post, but our view count is not being updated. Even if we refresh it a couple of times, our view count still remains the same. So we need a way to update the view count. And we can do that in our view, our detailed view. So where we have our detailed view, we are going to override the getObject method. Instead of returning this, we are going to store it in our object. So blog is equals to that, blog.super getObject, and we pass in the query set. Then after we have the blog object, we need to update the blog object's view count attribute. And we can do that using blog.objects.filter. And we're going to filter using the primary key, which will be equals to blog. Remember, blog is the object we've accessed over here. Dot primary key. And we want to update the view count. And to do this, we are going to use another function that we are going to import from Django. And that's from Django.db.models. And we want to import f. You're going to see how this is very useful. I'm going to explain everything in a few minutes. So view count, this will be equals to f. And we want to pass the name of our field, which is view count. And we want to add 1 to our view count. So Django's f method is used to refresh the field's current value and to perform operations on it directly at the database level without querying it first. Without it, we would have to do something like this, where we first query the blog object, then access the view count field, add 1, then run blog.save. Using the f expression saves us from doing this, which is inefficient and very slow. So this is how we will be tracking our view count. This approach is used universally when you want to track incrementing values. For example, when you want to track likes, you're going to be using this approach. After processing our blog objects and incrementing the view count, we want to return the blog object. So we return the blog object. And before we continue, let's set the query set to none to avoid getting any errors. Then we can run the server and see this practically. At the moment, you can see the view count is, all of them are set to 0. We can navigate to our blog page. And when we navigate to this page, you'll see that the view count has been incremented to 1. When we run it again, the view count will be updated to 2. If we go to this one, the same thing is going to happen. As you see here, it still works. So that's it. We have created our blog detail view, our blog list view. The next items you're going to do, we're going to create the blog create view, the blog delete view, and we're also going to create the blog update view. But we're going to do that in the next tutorial. I've given you a few pro tips, such as how to properly use this f expression. You can try to use it in your own applications. I'm going to write a detailed blog about it in my Patreon account and in my website, so be sure to look at that. If you found this video useful, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing for similar content. And if you have the means, you can buy me a coffee by scanning the QR code or by clicking the link in the description. Thank you so much.